What will President Trump do next? More tariffs? Is he going to go much harder on China from what we saw yesterday?
Well, my reading of the situation is that Donald Trump is a guy who, for him, everything is transactional. It should not have been a surprise that he was going to impose these tariffs. He signaled it for years, but he wants this to be a transaction. He wants China to respond. And the Chinese have taken a very measured response to these tariffs and says it wants to avoid a trade war. So there will be talks. And the question is, what will come out of those talks?
Okay, and what comes out of those talks, Enda, Curran, I imagine will, of course, exacerbate a response from China. Now, what we've heard, the $3 billion of tariffs from China, wasn't a response to these latest tariffs, right? They were because of the IP.
That's entirely right. There are two separate issues here. The tariffs that China announced were in response to the steel and aluminum tariffs. It was just coincidental timing. The critical issue here, though, is that we don't yet know what goods the US have chosen. And until we do know, China can't really respond in any meaningful way. We do know that the narrative coming out of Beijing has been consistent. They do not want a trade war, and they are keen to avoid it. And even this week, Premier Li Keqiang said they will do all they can to protect IP, and they will not force technology transfer. So China is making all of the right sounds. Their overall response has been relatively subdued, but a critical question now is just what goods are chosen, and then how does China respond?
Mike, how should the Chinese approach this? I'm not asking you to give the authorities in Beijing advice, but kind of if you look at how this will work from the Chinese perspective, which bits of the US economy are most exposed?
Well, there's two ways to look at that. One is politically exposed, and the Chinese, in choosing the sanctions that they just put on today for the steel tariffs, have apparently tried to go for some political gains in states that were Donald Trump supporters, especially by the pork tariffs, because those are in the Midwest. But they are also looking at, the U.S. is looking at high-tech, high-value-add areas to sanction them for the intellectual property theft. So they may respond by going after companies in that area in the United States. You would think of a Boeing or an Apple or somebody like that. They have a wide range of possibilities. They've talked about everything from soybeans to airliners. And I guess it will depend, as Enda says, on what the final choice of items that the president chooses to put on the list.